How you doing? Roger Quinn, and we're back this time absolutely for the final video in this 4-part, damn it, series on how to make a basic CSS styled web page. We got up in the previous video to this bit, okay, which was a bit of a mess. It's generally working okay, but we went to put a footer on it and it appears over here looking really spaz, or not so good. So let's find out what's going on there. Now, we made a rule for that footer and we told it to be 800 wide and 30 high, and we told it to, and I'll show you in the code there that it really is appearing exactly in the right spot. Okay, so it is appearing after the sort of main content div that we made. Okay, so there it is. There's the footer at the very bottom, and the very last thing there is the container, so it is right, but it's just not appearing correctly. So let's find out why. And there is a fairly simple reason for this, and it's got to do with that basic way that CSS stuff works. Okay, what's happening here is some previous rules that were set. Okay, the rules that were affecting these content areas here, the left-hand content and the text content, were set to float left. Okay, and so those rules unfortunately have cascaded down to affect the footer. So all we've got to do is find out a way to tell the footer rule to ignore those rules. Okay, and it's actually easy. And this is a handy way to know how to tell div rules to ignore previous rules, particularly when it's affected by floats. So to do it, just double-click the rule that we made for footer, okay, and go into the box model, and then something that you might have noticed is this area near float that's called clear. Okay, and this is precisely what this is for. If we set clear, I'm just going to set it to clear both, so I'm just going to clear both the left and the right. What that does, you might have seen it down the bottom there, it's put that footer to appear now where we wanted it. Okay, it's no longer sort of squashed up, it's actually appearing down the bottom in the right spot. In fact, I've just noticed that what I do want that to do is to be 1024 pixels wide, not 800. And there we go, and our footer is appearing right across the bottom there, just where we wanted it. Okay, so that's good. So that's what the clear does. Okay, it removes any rules that might be affecting the next div. Okay, in this case it was the floats. It was trying to get it to float left to it, and it's told it to ignore that and just appear back in the default mode of standard HTML stuff, which is to go to the left there, which is what that's doing. Okay, so now I just need to do a little bit of type styling and tidying up of my footer. I'm just going to throw some typical sort of generic footer text in there. So just type in the page design credit by Roger Quinn. And yeah, you might have contact details or something like that. Might appear down the bottom there as a little link. I'll show you how to do links either later or in another video. And there it is. So, and that's looking pretty ugly. It's in that default text. So I'm just going to quickly change my footer rule to remind it to be Arial sans serif text, and to also be in the purple color that I want, and also to be a font size of small. Okay, and finally I also want that text to appear in the center of my div, so I'm going to use that same effect I was using of block text align center. Okay, and there's my text appearing in the position where I wanted it. Not quite where I want it though, because it's really butting right up against the top of that div border there, so I'm just going to give that a little bit of padding space as well. Okay, so box, and I'll turn off same for all in padding and give it, I don't know, 10 pixels or something. That looks good. Okay, now let's have a quick look at how that is looking so far. Got a live view. Yeah, not too bad, but something that's bugging me there is I'd like to see a little bit of definition between my content body area and my footer. So I'm just going to put a border along the top of that so it sort of separates it a bit. And I'm really only doing that to just show you the border command. Okay, so again, it's not really very difficult. Going back into the footer rule that I made, because I'm only going to apply this to the footer div for the moment. And down in border, okay, I'm going to just turn off same for all on everything and just set a border along the top. Okay, you can of course put a border going right around the whole thing, which is the default. I'm just going to put it along the top. I'm going to choose a solid line. I'm going to make it thin. Okay, these are just some of the default settings that are available in the drop downs. And once again, I'll just choose our purple color. Okay, I'm just sampling that from the top div there. And there it is. Go to live view, and that's how it's looking. Okay, and then really the only thing now that needs to be cleaned up is I've still got some of this container text down here which I don't need, which I'll just get rid of. Okay, so just content for the original container. I don't need that declared in there anymore. And the other thing that I no longer need, you might notice, is that that original container is still going down lower than my main content. If you remember, that's because we originally set a height for our container box of 768. I don't need that anymore because the content isn't pushing that far, so I'm just going to delete it. And because my footer is the last thing in there and it was told the floats and things to clear, it's basically pushing that down to the very bottom of where my footer is appearing. Okay, so the yellow background is still the yellow background of the container. It's appearing behind the footer because I didn't set a color for my footer, so it just inherits that. And just do a quick live view of that. And it's looking good. Now, one final thing that bugs me a little bit about that is I really don't want that to sort of appear floating in that white generic background. I'd actually like to set that yellow color we've used as the background to my whole page. At the moment, it's only the background to that container div we made. So for that, I'll just show a variation on making style rules. Okay, so we're going to make a new rule. And this time, instead of it being an ID, I'm going to make a tag rule. Okay, and in fact, it is the body tag that I want to affect. Okay, so a tag means it's going to redefine an existing HTML element. Okay, now that element is the body, which is already declared in the basic HTML setup. So I'm going to just make a rule that affects part of that. Okay, so it's the body. If it didn't come up, you can just type in body. Okay, very important that this be a tag though, not an ID. And I'm just going to change the background to the same yellow just by sampling it. And when I apply that, it'll go out to the full border. Okay, just check that in live view. All right, that's kind of right, but just so that I can be really sure that my design is sitting where I want it to be, and again, just to play with the borders, I'm going to set a border on my original container using the same settings that I used on the footer. Okay, so solid, thin, and choose that purple color, apply, and there it is. Okay, so that's not particularly going to win any design prizes, but it's simply there, A, to show you how to do a border, and just to define where all of those divs were essentially sitting, separate to the actual background of the page, okay, which we just set to be yellow. Let's have a quick look at our code. Okay, there's all the rules, okay, that we declared, the style rules, okay, CSS styles. And there's where the body starts for our page, and there's the actual content appearing down here. Okay, I'm just going to save that, and we shall have a quick look in a browser, because this live view thing in Dreamweaver is good, but sometimes it's not flawless, so it doesn't always show you exactly how this is going to behave in a browser. So we should really do that. Okay, and you do have to save first, which I did, and you can use either File, Preview in Browser, or this little Earth sort of icon just here. I'm just going to tell it to preview in Safari, and there it is. And if we move our browser around, we'll see that it still centers, and there is our basic div styled page. Okay, and relatively close to, I would argue even exactly the same as our original design mock-up that we made back in Illustrator. Okay, so there you go. Now obviously we haven't put links, we haven't done anything on this just yet. This was simply a tutorial showing, well simply, gosh, it was 4 parts, but you get the idea. Okay, I'm going to make another tutorial at some stage soon that's going to concentrate on navigation and links. Okay, links are actually pretty easy to add. I'll just quickly show as we finish off this one to add a link to one of my buttons. I just click that button, and then down in the properties inspector I can simply add my link. So if I just wanted that to go to the Adobe website, I'm just simply down in link typing the address for it. Okay, http ://www.adobe.com, and add that. And just one thing to be aware of when you do add links, it adds a default blue border around things if it's a graphic. So just make sure when you do that, you click your graphic and set the border down in properties here to be 0. Okay, and then that'll go away. And if we save and preview, you'll find that that actually does work as a link. So preview in Safari. We can see our little hand changes there. If we click it, that will go and find the Adobe website. Well, it's loading in there, it's doing something. There we go, so that did work. Anyway, more of that in a future tutorial. So there you go, I hope that helps, and good luck when making your pages. Bye now.